So the project this time is to fabricate some new sway bar links for this front suspension on the 55 Buick. So the original suspension had a plate here that had a little dish for the coil, which had the shock inside. It also had a little loop over here that connected with a link up to the end of the sway bar. When I went and put the airbags on, I haven't changed that out, so I ended up putting a 1/4 inch piece of plate all the way across, and I use that as my lower mount for the bag. Well, the unintended consequence of that is I lost my link or the spot to mount the sway bar link. So we're going to go through how we're going to refabricate those. And I also got a little cheap sway bar component kit off of Amazon, and that's what we're going to use to kind of hook this all together. So I'm just checking to see where the hole needs to be drilled on the little extension tab that I built here. Looks like I built them too long, so I could probably shorten this down a fair bit. And right now this suspension is all the way at the lowered end, right? So right now I've got it jacked up so it's all the way up onto the bump stop. So what I'm going to do next is lower it all the way down and kind of just see where the whole travel goes and make sure I'm not going to get any binding. So the problem identified now is that since with the suspension all the way at its kind of the highest point that it could go, the full extension up against the bump stop, the way the sway bar link works is it's kind of tying my link back almost at the edge of this plate, which doesn't really work well for me. So what I'm going to do is there's the 2 bolts here that mount the sway bar. I'm going to have essentially offset those forward by about 1.5 inches on both sides, and then I'll be able to put my sway bar link in a nicer spot out here, and it still won't affect and run into the tires or have any other issues like that. So now I'm just making sure I got clearance up against the rad support, and the sway bar has moved forward to where I want it to be. And now I'll just mark out my holes. Since I haven't moved the other side, I'm only going to mark the front holes so that when I end up moving that side as well, when I do the other side like this, the back one will pivot a little bit. So by doing it this way, I'll just make sure I don't have to oversize any holes any unforeseen ways. So I had to take a quick time out, but I went and had to cut off the other side. The bolts were too seized on that side to even get to move. So cut off those bolts, move the sway bar the same amount on that side. Now I'm ready to re-drill these holes. And then I think the next thing we'll end up doing is I think I'll probably need different lengths of the tie bolt that goes between here, just to kind of make the angles work. But we'll check on that as soon as I get these holes drilled on both sides for the new sway bar. All right, so here's what I got so far. So what I did realize is that my bolts are too short. I wasn't even able to get the second rubber that goes on the bottom here with the washer, because I think I use a lot thicker of a plate there than what they had planned on. And also I think this is a lot thicker than what some of the newer ones are. So I'll just get some longer bolts for this, and I think it'll work pretty well. So this is us all the way with the car lowered, essentially up at the bump stops. And I'll lower this, and you can see it goes through the motion not too bad, all the way down. So there we go, from one suspension travel to the other suspension travel without really much binding or much issues. And I think to make this as smooth as possible, I want to try to make it so that at my ideal ride height, that's about in the middle, so that bolt is perfectly vertical. So to make it like that, I'm going to end up playing with this bolt length, because when you think about it, right now it's about level with it all the way down. And when I went all the way up, this is closer to where my usual ride height and driving position is going to be. So I think I'm fairly happy with that. Still lots of clearance for both the tire and the suspension across to the new mount.